Hello and welcome to Best Coast Sports Connection. This is the BCSC Podcast. I'm Brian Vilvin and joined today by Thomas Conroy. Thomas, how you doing? No Andy Bishop with us today, as Andy is on an airplane right now, heading back home for a couple of days. But Thomas, happy to have you here. Happy Wednesday and happy day off of a Padres victory. So we've been having a lot of those recently, man.
Yeah, I mean, what a great way to start off the week, Brian. Winning that final game of the homestand, and then last night with San Francisco. Again, the power was on display last night. Yeah, Fernando Tatis and Will Myers once again.
Yeah, so much has been made of what Tatis did in that at bat, going the opposite way in San Francisco for a home run as a right-handed hitter on a ball that was on the inner half of the plate. Like, that kind of power going the other way is, you just never see that kind of thing. How impressive was that?
Yeah, I mean, he's been really impressive after our last podcast, because if you remember in Monday's game, he hit that triple, and that was a big hit and really kind of set them, on the course to victory. So he's had an excellent start to the season, and I hate to use the word because it's such a cliche, but he's got to be, like, right now one of the MVPs of this team. But it's really amazing how we talked on our preview show, Brian, that at the top of the order, it really kind of sets the tone for the entire lineup. And boy, the top of the lineup has been, you have to give them an A+ in week one of this crazy season.
Yeah, they've definitely earned that so far. You were the one who first made mention of the top of the order, and a guy who has been actually a couple of guys who we didn't mention in the top of the order, but who have found their way there in the first couple of games. Trent Grisham, who's been batting second whenever they face a right-hander, and then Jurickson Profar, who started off the season in the cleanup spot. And although he hasn't been hitting, he's been getting on base and he's been scoring runs. So he's been a huge factor as well. So pretty much anyone that Tingler's putting up there has been productive.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Brian, I wasn't a big fan of Profar at first. I was given the proverbial short leash at second base, but I agree with you, because you made the point that his approach he seems to be more mature at the plate than he had been in his time with Texas and Oakland. Obviously, I watch a little bit more American League baseball than you and Andy do, and to me, he seemed like he got fooled and his impatience at the plate allowed a pitcher to kind of expand the strike zone on him. But I don't see that at all this year with the Padres. I see the approach that you've been stressing all through our podcast of, waiting for your pitch, extend that pitch count from him, and and as long we know he can make the plays at second. It's really about him showing that patient approach at the plate that I think is going to extend him, because, even though he had a poor year with Oakland average-wise, hitting 20 homers is pretty impressive.
Yeah, another guy whose approach at the plate has totally revamped is Will Myers. He's been going up there and giving you really competitive at-bats. He had another home run last night, so that's a couple home runs in 5 days for Will. It's just something, it feels like it's infectious with this team. You just look up and down the order and you're getting high quality at bats.
Yeah, doesn't he seem like ever since he signed that big deal to stay here with the Padres, he's been the town's, like, whipping boy. It just seems like every time. I mean, just the smallest little kind of misstep he does, if he get, because, like, I get texts from from friends of ours, like, when he got picked off at first, it was like, see, I told you, sleeping off the bag, and and then he misses the foul ball when he played first, and because of the sun, and I was like, come on, I mean, he's looking straight into the sun, like, we just give him like a little bit of a slack, man. I mean, but I think his critics are going to be silenced because he seems really focused this year, and maybe it's a coming age too, because if you look at his history. He was a top prospect of the Kansas City Royals, and then got traded to Tampa Bay, and then came here in a subsequent trade. So I think he's finally kind of settled in now, and thankfully, I think because of his versatility and his athleticism, that he's here in San Diego.
Well, and as good as the offense has been in this new approach and everybody getting on base, they're getting a lot of timely hits, but they still haven't hit to their potential. So when the guys really do start getting, Tommy Pham has hit a couple of balls just right on the screws, right at people, or they've made impressive plays to get him out. But once these balls start falling, and the law of averages say that they will, man, look out. The Pods are 4-1, and they really haven't even put it all together yet.
Hey, Brian, in a few games that he's played, what's your impression of Francisco Mejia? Do you think he's improved a bit?
I think he's improved behind the dish. Although for me, it's really hard to tell, what a good catcher is behind home plate.
Right.
He'll block some balls. There's a few things that he does, like, Hedges throwing behind the runner last night. That was super impressive. But it's hard for me to really tell. It seems like he's gotten a little bit better behind the plate, but at bat, the catcher position is still just every single time they go up there. That's the one spot where you don't necessarily know you're going to get a great at bat. That, and then Josh Naylor's kind of been in that same boat. Like, he'll go up and have one really good at bat, and then he'll come up and just look silly in the next at bat. So those are a couple of people that I got to have my eye on, are Mejia and Josh Naylor moving forward here in the next week or so. And Thomas, we talked about it a little bit, but the roster has to be trimmed down to 28 players in a week. So, I mean, you're likely going to lose one of those pitchers and then someone else, another position player. And right now I got to think it's probably Josh Naylor who's right on the outside looking in for that 28th roster spot.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I just think, as you mentioned in your just before, he's having a hard time really kind of settling in at the plate. And, it kind of just seems like the organization right now doesn't even have confidence of putting him in as a relief at first base for Hosmer, especially when he was down with that illness, where when last year at this time, they try to find ways to get him into the lineup, and they would even try to stick him in at first when they could, because that's his natural position. And, I hate like saying, we're going to send them down, because sometimes being sent down also helps you to develop your own game at your own rate. And you don't need the pressure of always trying to perform here at the major league level. So that might be a good thing for Josh Naylor.
Another guy who's gotten some starts, he'll get another start tonight, Edward Olivares. Any initial impressions of the young outfielder for the Padres?
Yeah, surprise. Brian, he was never on my radar as far as, to be truthful, during spring training. I hardly pay attention to spring training because, usually we're busy in our other job, and also because it's a culmination of the college basketball season, and March Madness grabs most of my attention at that time. But I'm telling you, in summer camp, I was totally shocked when this team traded Franchi Cordero to Kansas City to get Tim Hill, part of that deal. And then when I read the reports, especially from Dennis Lynn of The Athletic, about Edwin Olivares is the star of summer camp, I was like, first, who's Edwin Olivares? And how is he the star of the camp? But I'll tell you, Brian, in the couple starts that he's had in the outfield, he impresses me with his bat. That is a lively at bat, and he can, you would think when you think I think he'll survive when it goes down from 30 to 28, but he's really gonna have to play in that period when it gets trimmed from 28 to 26. I don't know if he could survive that cut. He may. It's really, depending upon himself. But, yeah, I mean, pleasantly, Brian, I think he's a star or a player that's going to be definitely in the rotation in the coming years. And I'm really looking forward to watching this kid because he's impressed me.
Yeah, he's got incredible bat speed, and then just speed on the base path as well. You talked about the athleticism of this Padres team last time out. And he just embodies that. Like, every single time he's up there, you feel like something special is going to happen. And, if Naylor does go down, then Olivares becomes your fourth outfielder. So I think he's got a chance to even potentially stick when the roster goes down to 26. And then, depending on how injuries or potentially COVID play out over the next few weeks, that could dictate some things. But, yeah, Olivares has cemented himself right in there in that rotation. Another guy, Thomas, who is right around that cut line, but who has been really impressive so far in very limited action. I mean, he's gotten one at bat but he got a double off the wall, nearly tied the game up. That was Jake Cronenworth. He'll get his first start tonight at second base. Any initial impressions on the young, versatile hitter and potentially pitcher at some point? But Jake
right. Yeah, I watched the 2 exhibition games against Los Angeles Angels, and I was impressed with him when he was in there. I liked his bat, and I just like his presence in the lineup, and he's so darn versatile. I mean, it just seems like he's the type of baseball player, you know it. They probably just throw a glove at him and they say, "Hey, go play left field. Have you ever played it before?" Nah, just go out there.
Hey, we need a catcher. We need a catcher. We already pulled out Hedges and Mejia.
Exactly.
Hit, or that guy can do everything.
He's like the classic baseball player. It just, you throw him out there and he'll figure it out, and and he has the bat speed to stay on. And when you talk about Olivares, and I was thinking more Cronenworth will have to show his versatility to become that fourth outfielder before they would let Olivares go. So it's going to be kind of interesting that it might be down to those 2 players when we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, talk about your first major league at bat. You come in with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning with your team trailing by 2 and a runner on second. You hit a double off the wall. I'd say that's no moment's going to be too big for that kid.
And that came right after that tremendous catch by the D-backs left fielder. I mean, I thought that ball.
Gosh.
I didn't see it at first that he caught the ball. I kind of was like, oh my God, that I didn't see it go to the wall. Where did it go? And then he kind of just put his glove up in the air. I was like, oh, he caught it. Wow.
Yeah, David Peralta normally is a masher at the plate against the Padres. Like, he's been a perennial Padre killer, but this time around he struggled at the plate. But man, his defense, he took away balls from Tommy Pham that I feel like, that ball gets down, and we're talking about a different ball game. You got Pham on at least second, the game tied, and still only 1 out with Cronenworth coming up. So that really changed the game, and that's probably why the Pods aren't sitting at 5-0.
Right.
So another piece of the puzzle that a lot of people are interested in, coming into the season, obviously the pitching staff, we knew who 1, 2, and 3 were going to be if they were healthy, in Paddock, Lamet, and then Garrett Richards. We figured that Zach Davies, don't call me Kyle Davies, Thomas, that Zach Davies would slot in at that number 4 spot. He pitched last night for the first time. What were your impressions on Davies?
Not at all surprised if you watching him with the Brewers, especially in their playoff runs the last few seasons. He really he gave that same performance. He's gonna pitch you a solid 5 to 6 innings, depending upon how far pitching wise, and I really wasn't surprised. I was a little concerned after he gave up the run in the first inning, but I just think that was because of the inactiveness of waiting a full week before he got on the hill. But you really, Brian, he's one of the few major league pitchers that has an under 4 ERA, and especially in this league, that's highly impressive. I was a little shocked at first that they moved Joey Lucchesi ahead of him in the rotation. But, like you said in our last podcast, you can't really argue with the way Jay Stingler is running the team. So, I'll stay with it. And then it comes out aces last night because Davies gave them length in the outing, and really, and now this team is 4-1. So you really almost, you have to hold that breath right now in Lucchesi's spot in the rotation, because it seems like everybody else, as you mentioned, is right on target.
Yeah, so I think another thing we're going to have to see from these Padres is the players' willingness to accept whatever role they're given. Mm-hmm. So Joey Lucchesi pitched in the 4th slot and Davies in the 5th, but I don't think there's any question that Davies is ahead of him in the rotation. Mm-hmm. I just think Tingler might have, he'd thrown 3 straight right-handers up there against the Diamondbacks, and in the 4th game, let's give him a different look, throw a lefty up there, and then the second time through the rotation, right after, the 9th batter comes up, and then boom, let's bring in Cal Quantrill and hit him with a bunch of righties. So I think that might have been more just because it's a 4-game series and that kind of thing. And instead of Davies getting upset that he wasn't number 4 in line, he went out and pitched lights out yesterday, which is what we needed him to do. So very impressed with the first outing from Zach Davies.
Yeah. Brian, as we move forward, how much rope would you give Joey Lucchesi as far as in a 60-game season? You know, it's different when we're playing 162. We're only playing 60, and you know, I don't know how many times you can allow him to go, you know, struggle through 3 or 4 innings, and then use your bullpen when you obviously have options, you know, on your you know, here in San Diego or with your with that 30-man crew that is off-site.
Yeah, well, it's all going to come down, I think. Right now, it's going to be Lucchesi and Quantrill that are kind of piggybacking in that role. But, yeah, I just don't know if they want to bring up Gore or Patino yet. It's kind of frustrating as Padre fans because we know that we've got 2 of the best pitching prospects, you know, Paddock-style prospects waiting in the wings. So then when you throw up somebody who you feel like isn't maybe giving you the best efforts. But we've also seen, I mean, Joey Lucchesi has had a lot of really good outings over the last few years. He's kind of been one of the only consistent pieces to the Padres. Sometimes he has those blow-up games, but he can give you at least a couple times through the order. And I think that's all they're going to be asking of him right now is face 18 batters and then get out of there. And then Quantrill piggybacks on that. And if it takes 2 guys to become number 5, that's okay. I'm really okay with that makeup. Injuries happen or, you know, sore shoulders, things like that. And obviously coronavirus is waiting in the wings too. So you can't have too much pitching. I think the only way that Gore or Patino will see the roster is if there is a significant injury with one of the starting pitchers. But otherwise, you know, I'm really not too – I don't know if I would make a change there with the Lucchesi Quantrill 5th spot.
And moving forward to 2021,
yeah,
for Gore and Patino, if Mackenzie Gore and Luis Patino don't see any action this year at the major league level, we don't know what they're doing off-site. Does that hinder their chances for next season?
Yeah, I mean, not having a season at all. That's you're right. It would be great to know what camp is like over in Fowler Park at USD, like what they're doing. Are they getting real simulated game action? I mean, simulated games are never going to give you what an actual competition is, but I mean, nobody else in minor league baseball is playing this year either, unless you're part of the man practice squads. So yeah, I mean, it can't help, but I don't know if it necessarily, you know, I don't know if they would have made the opening day roster next year either way. If they're good enough to, AJ Preller is going to put them on the team. So yeah, I mean, it's a question that I don't have the answer to, but I think it's pretty clear that he's going to give the ball to whoever's in the best position to succeed at that moment. So
it's kind of funny. They fall into the same category that Chris Paddock did 2 spring trainings ago, where he was the prospect that everybody wanted to see, but all the experts said, you know what, it's a long shot for him to make the roster out of spring training, and then he kind of had that attitude of, well, I'll show you, and made the team, and you know, look where he is. So maybe we'll strike lightning twice with one of those 2 pitchers.
Yeah, man, I thought with Paddock there was a chance he was going to start opening day, so as a rookie. But yeah, I mean, AJ Preller putting Tatis and Paddock on the team, I think that just kind of set the tone for the new era of Padres baseball, that he's just going to put out there whoever is in the best position to succeed. So yeah, it's exciting.
It really is. I mean, it's one of the few times where you also have to pay attention to what's happening in a normal year at AAA to see, you know, how they're aligning as well.
Yeah, so it is interesting with that squad over at USD, but I really like the players they've got over there. You know, from CJ Abrams is another guy who has the potential to be a total stud. So I I'd love to hear how intense those practices are and what those look like, what those scrimmages look like. To be a fly on the wall there would be pretty sweet. So maybe we'll work our way over into a USD at some point here, Thomas. Another thing I wanted, just last thing here, the bullpen. Yesterday, Drew Pomerantz came in and got the 3-out save. He came in instead of Kirby Yates, who had pitched back-to-back days but didn't pitch on Monday. Were you surprised to see Pomerantz in there instead of Yates for the save last night?
Yeah, I was. If there was one thing that I felt, if I could have an issue with Tingler's approach, is I hate bringing in my closer in a tie game like that, like he did.
In a non-save situation.
Yeah, like I just don't think it to me they don't have the same intensity. Every time I see a closer on the mound in those situations, they just don't work. They don't have this. They just don't have the same approach. And I think he, especially in that inning, he just seemed to get into a rut, and then he just pitched himself right out of an inning because he just threw too many. And
I'll tell you something about that, Thomas. Just before you get too far, my dad hates when you bring in the closer in a non-save situation. He just feels like they're going to blow it every single time. And right after that game on Sunday, my phone's ringing and it's my parents' house. And I answer, my dad's like, "Oh man, and I was like, it's because they brought in Kirby Yates in a non-save situation." I was like, "Yeah, I told your mom as soon as they did that, they're going to, oh man." He was all fired up. So I told him I'd give a little shout out here on this because he hates that just like you. Oh man. I was laughing.
And it's so rare to get an opinion out of your dad, Bob Bilvin. Just joking. He's been on the show.
He's never short on those, Thomas.
Yeah, he's been on our podcast before.
Yeah, guest appearance.
I agree with him. I mean, it does seem like I understood why they brought him in Saturday, because you don't want to go 2 straight days without getting some work in.
Yeah.
But when he brought him in on Sunday, I was like, why are you doing it again? You don't. You have other options right there. So that's my only pet peeve of what Jace has done thus far with the team. And I think last night was kind of a mental break for him. I fully expect to see, Kirby Yates tonight if there's a save situation.
Yeah, me too. But I also like that, he has options, because in years past, if it wasn't going to be Kirby Yates getting the save, you were looking around like, okay, well, who's it going to be? Is it someone like a Trey Wingenter? Or, we had no idea who would be that guy. So just having somebody, a deep bullpen where you could look 3-4 guys and be confident that they're going to be able to come in and get that save. Just shows you the depth of this pen.
I know you're exactly right, because Craig Stammen last year was the 8th inning guy, so to speak, and now he's like one of the guys you bring in before go to Pomerantz and Pagan.
7th or 8th arm back there. I mean, even Javi Guerra had another high leverage outing. So that guy, man, he's been a bright spot as well for someone who was kind of under the radar. And who's been a shortstop his entire professional career until 16 months ago.
How do you feel his future lies for him? Do you think he makes it past 28?
I mean, I think he has to, based on how many years he has been in the system. So I think he's going to, especially like we said, he's been getting those high leverage spots. So I think someone with options would be the one to go before him. Maybe he becomes a trade piece, but with as electric as his stuff is and as raw as he is, I think there's no doubt that he should be a main fixture in this pen for the long haul.
He's got to be one of the rare pitchers that it has a single digit number.
Yeah, it looks. Yeah, I think it looks good though. I don't know.
Yeah. Because like sometimes I forget that it's him, and I'm all like, oh, what are they doing? Are
He's
they
number 8,
some
right?
Yeah,
number 8. Yeah, yeah, I like that. I always liked Mark Brunell back in the day with the Jaguars.
Yeah, there you go.
I've always had a little number 8 thing. Think that's cool. It's no number 12, on Stan Humphries, but yeah, the number 8. It's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I do notice it like every single time he's up there. That's why I know he's number 8 randomly.
Yeah, I hope he stays too. I would think, from the pitching wise, Brian, I would think him and Johnson are probably fighting for that not to be cut, I guess.
Yeah, I think. Well, so I think
that role.
I think the first one would be Bednar. He'd be the first one to go. We haven't actually seen him in any action yet.
Okay.
He pitched in that last scrimmage against the Angels, but he's been a pleasant surprise, David Bednar. So I think he probably goes with Naylor to go from 30 to 28. And then, if there are options left, and I'd have to really dive deeper into this, but with Pierce Johnson probably, and then maybe honestly, Ty France, depending on how it goes. Those two guys are the two guys that go to make it down to 26. That's what I would project if I had to make the decisions right now, with no injuries, no coronavirus, none of that. It would be Naylor and Bednar go first, and then Ty France and Pierce Johnson. Just because I think Cronenworth gives you so much more flexibility than France. It's not like France has jumped in and you have to use him as your DH because he's just so much better. And then I love Greg Garcia as well. That guy, every single time he's up, he's giving you a quality at bat. He can play second. He's another guy, I bet, he could play the outfield if you needed him to. He could put the gear on. He could catch. And he's a left-handed bat. I just think that he provides this level of flexibility, and I'll stand for Greg Garcia all day. So, and then Olivares, you can't lose him either. So I think that's probably what it shapes out as.
Yeah, we always have to root for those Valhalla grads, anyways.
That's right, man.
The Nordstrom.
Thomas, do you think Poway is East County? Raging debate on Twitter. Poway is East County. There's no doubt that Valhalla and El Cajon is East County, yes, but we'll let the Twitter folks handle whether Poway is East County. All right, any closing thoughts as we head into the second trip around the rotation? Paddock going tonight and going 1, 2, 3 with the big fellows the next 3 days.
No, to me, if I was in that clubhouse, I'd be like, let's keep the momentum going. I stuck my head out on the line now. I want them to be 8-2 when we reconvene. I can't have any. We got to keep the ball rolling here.
Did I go with 7-3?
Yeah,
and Andy went 6-4.
Right.
Man, I got no faith. I can't believe I didn't go 9-1. Jeez, I wanted to go 9-1 so badly, but you guys always give me a hard time. All right, so 7-3. Well, I'm rooting for 9-1. But no, it'll be fun to see. It's just right now, it's can't miss television. So you got to watch every single Pods game, and just so glad the baseball's back, that they were able to get things going. A little scary what's going on with the Marlins, and hope that doesn't derail everything. But I'm just so fired up to have baseball back in our lives.
I'm kind of just to get on the one little take on the Marlins thing. Yeah. I'm kind of glad that Commissioner Rob Manfred didn't really kind of ease everybody's feelings last night when he went on the interview last night, because I think you have to be concerned with the outbreak in the Marlins, what happened in the Marlins franchise, but I don't think you have to close the entire sport down. To me, the only way this season becomes in doubt if 3 or 4 teams get the same results that the Marlins get, then you have a major concern. But I think right now, you have to, really Major League Baseball has to find out what protocol did they miss to should they have stopped the Marlins, when those 3 players, to me, when those 3 players got tested positive on Sunday, they should not have been allowed to play in that game, because that would have been the 4th, because they had a player prior to the start of the season test positive, and baseball kind of was lagging at that. I think they're always concerned about having 4 or more on one day testing positive, when they should have maybe just kind of halted it right there and see try to stop the problem right there, kind of isolate them and see what they can do. But boy, if you're a Marlins fan, Brian, you better dig deep in your yearbook to find out who's going to be playing for you next week, because it sounds like they're asking anybody They might ask Mike Piazza to come out of retirement to play because they're looking for players left and right.
Well, if they need a super tall, lanky pitcher who can't find the plate, then I'm ready to suit up.
You can give him 3 innings?
Yeah, hey. I'll give him 3 batters. I'll probably hit 2 of them and get suspended, but I'll take it.
Oh, you'll go the Joe Kelly route?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about Joe Kelly, Thomas? We talked about it a little bit before, but
Right.
any thoughts about the Joe Kelly suspension?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of funny how the Astros are feeling that everybody's against them when they really haven't even really apologized for what they've done. It just kind of, you knew this was going to happen, and especially when the season in question, your World Series opponent was the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah.
And you knew they were going to retaliate, and I wasn't surprised that it happened in the first game. I thought it would have happened sooner in the contest, but Joe Kelly came to the rescue and definitely got everybody off of
Joe
COVID
Kelly.
for that.
Joe Kelly got a lot of fans out of this. And I can't tell you how many Padre fans texted, sent me direct messages about Joe Kelly stuff and how they're, free Joe Kelly and all that. So even though he's a Dodger and that's our sworn enemy, he's
Right.
a lot of fans probably all across baseball going after the very smug, like you said, Houston Astros.
How did you feel about the incident and then later the suspension?
I mean, the incident.
It's great. We know that.
Oh man, yeah. I figured it was coming, and it took some big stones for Joe Kelly to be the one to do that. And I think the suspension, like baseball just had to do that because if they didn't set a precedent right now, then people were going to continue throwing at the Astros. And I think if there was no coronavirus, this kind of would have just blown over. But because of all the COVID concerns and the fact that, the bench is cleared and they had their little face-to-face interactions, baseball was like, we cannot have this anymore. So that's why they suspended him. I thought that it was super harsh, and only because of the circumstances did they do it that way. That's just like a warning shot to everybody else in baseball not to do that. But yeah, not going to say anything else.
That was the first ever socially distanced bench clearing brawl.
I know. I don't think any of them would have done anything, even if it wasn't, COVID time. But yeah, man, Joe Kelly. I don't know if he has as much courage as was it Amir Garrett who took on like the entire Pittsburgh Pirates?
Oh right, yeah, last
year ago, yeah. But that's Joe Kelly is right up there. Like if Amir Garrett is courage player number 1, then Joe Kelly's 1A. So
Amir Garrett's in a different column. I mean, he's 6'8", former college basketball center.
Yeah,
I mean,
that guy.
He used to having like 3 or 4 guys jumping on his back, trying to defend him. So,
well, it'd be like if you took me, made me really strong and athletic, and gave me a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and a ton of courage, then I'm basically Amir Garrett. Oh Lord. Well, Thomas,
I just want to finish off. I that's the one thing I do miss kind of is baseball bench clearing brawls, because it's kind of funny just seeing the outside peripheral of players and what they do. Not so much the guys kind of rolling around in the dirt. It's the backup players and the pitchers that charge in from the bullpen.
Yeah,
see them kind of getting tangled up with one another. It always brings me kind of a little chuckle.
It is a pretty funny thing, especially with all like the standing around. It's always usually a couple people fighting and then everyone else is just standing around, which kind of mimics like real life skirmishes. There's like normally 1 or 2 people doing all the jabbering, and then everyone else is kind of standing around like, except everyone's got their phone out. Oh man.
What a crazy world we live in.
All right, everybody. Well, keep wearing your masks. Stay at home. Go to the grocery store. Do what you got to do. But let's try to get 60 games in here and then some playoffs, because this is the Padres season. This is the start of many beautiful years to come for for the San Diego Padres. So
let's all meet at 6:45 on Fox Sports San Diego.
Yeah,
Watch
down
another
for
win
that.
tonight.
All
Brian,
right, Thomas.
great talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. Another BCSC podcast in the books. For Thomas Conroy, I'm Brian Vilman saying so long. We'll talk to you next time.
Good night.